I said I have a very strong belief. The Big Ten is the best conference in college football, and it's not even close. I hope you know that. We talk about the SEC and how the SEC is so great. What is the SEC known for? The SEC is known for big, dominant linemen. And again, the SEC still has that this season, but so does the Big Ten. In fact, I think 3 of the teams in the Big Ten would beat every single team in the SEC. Besides Alabama, every team in the Big Ten would beat every team in the SEC 9 out of 10 times. At least those 3 teams. Excuse me. Those 3 big teams in the Big Ten that are dominant are Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State. Not to mention, again, Washington State is really good too. Or Wisconsin. Wisconsin is a really good team in the Big Ten as well. I just don't believe in Wisconsin's quarterback. Regardless, the Big Ten is absolutely loaded with good teams. So when I was asked to do rank the college football conferences from best to worst, from the number 1, what's the best conference in college football, and the worst, I was like, hell yeah, I'll do that. So even though I'm only ranking the Power 5 conferences, I strongly believe this is an interesting topic. Yeah, I live in Pac-12 country, and all my friends are trying to convince me how good the Pac-12 is this year. And yeah, the Pac-12 is on the upswing. But here's my ranking. Here is where I land. Obviously, the Big Ten is the best conference in football. They're number 1. I did the math, and then I counted how many teams each conference has in the top 25. And however, I rank each conference not by solely on how many teams they have in the top 25, because that's an objective ranking, right? That's a biased ranking. I don't like the top 25. I'm not always convinced. Like Washington State was in the top 25 for weeks, and I was like, why? We've beaten no one. So I don't hold as much value with the rankings. But as I count which teams have the most ranking teams in the top 25, one conference was very clear. The ACC is far ahead of everybody else. So the way I'm doing this ranking is the more good teams you have in your conference, the higher I will rank your conference. Meaning that I believe the Big Ten has the most teams that could beat other teams in other conferences. So if you compare the Big Ten and the Big 12, the Big Ten is going to win almost every game. If every team in the Big Ten played every team in the Pac-12 once, the Big Ten would have more wins than the Pac-12. That's how I'm doing this ranking. How do they match up against each other? So the Big Ten is first, and the ACC, the Atlantic Coast Conference, is second. The ACC does have the most teams in the top 25, but that's not why they're here. The ACC plainly has a lot of good teams. Clemson and Alabama are on their own planet this year. Clemson is in the ACC. But the ACC also has Louisville, NC State, Virginia Tech, Miami led by Mark Richt, and even though they currently are not in the top 25, because Florida State's quarterback got hurt, and because of the Hurricanes, which just kind of ruined their season, Florida State also has a fantastic roster. Florida State could completely dominate every Pac-12 team and Big 12 team, and even some of the SEC schools. Florida State's really good. Do not overlook Florida State. So the ACC is the number 2 conference. They have the second most good teams in their conference. That leads us next to the SEC. If I were going off one team, yes, the SEC would absolutely be the number 1 conference in college football because Alabama is far and away better than everybody else. It's not even close. However, this is not just about one team. This is about all the good teams in your conference. And, I don't like the SEC. I said at one point that they were the worst conference in college football. But then I reevaluated. I looked at what they have. Alabama's really good, Georgia's really good, and Auburn's pretty good. So even though I hate to say that I hate the SEC, I'm not afraid to hide that. And I almost put them at 5th. Overall, the SEC is really good. They have 3 really good teams, and they have 2 really good teams, and Alabama that is just dominant. Alabama is amazing. So the SEC is the 3rd best conference. They have dominant line play. They have three good teams. One of them is fantastic. And that leaves us with the Pac-12 at 4th. I like the Pac-12 this year. I think the Pac-12 is really good. But the line play in the Pac-12 just is not good enough. Georgia would probably dominate University of Washington. And University of Washington is the best team in the Pac-12. So even though the Pac-12 looks really good, and they're going to beat up on each other, the Pac-12 games are really good. They're going to be really fun. They're going to be close and competitive. I do not believe the Pac-12 is very competitive nationally. So we have so far, the Big Ten is 1, ACC is 2nd, SEC is 3rd, Pac-12 is 4th, and the Big 12 is then 5th. Line play in the Big 12 is bad, and there was no defense played anywhere. And because of practice rules, the Big 12 plays almost a different sport. It's crazy the style of football they play is just different and weird. It's way more pass heavy. There's bad tackling and bad line play. So I think Oklahoma is the only good team in the Big 12 that can compete nationally. Oklahoma is legit. I think Oklahoma would beat up on the Pac-12. But then the rest of the Pac-12 would just annihilate the rest of the Big 12 because, even though with TCU and OK State would win some games against the Pac-12, I just think the pass-heavy, weird style of football the Big 12 plays does not translate on a national level. Other teams would just knock and destroy the Big 12. So that is my final list. Again, the Big Ten is the number one conference in college football. The ACC is 2nd, the SEC is 3rd, the Pac-12 is 4th, and the 5th worst conference is the Big 12.